turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. First off, we're gonna get Nan Winter on the phone. I think you
Okay.
requested she be here.
Yeah.
Also, we will have Wilson and Company available to call if we have technical questions. They're on standby. If that's okay with you.
That's fine. Yeah, Nan asked me today if she could listen in. I said, absolutely. Yeah, no problem with that.
Hey, Nan, you're on speaker with the commission in the workshop.
Okay, I'll put you on mute.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
So, Mayor, Commission, I mean, it's a great day, I think. We've come a long way. I'd like to say, first off, I think we have to recognize previous commissions, previous mayors, previous finance directors, public works directors, and for sure I want to give a shout out to Ed Kotik and this team that's assembled here. We've brought this project a long ways, and it's I've learned in my relatively short term in government that these projects take years, and they're legacy projects, right? It's not one person or one group that generally gets it over the hump. I know, Mayor, you probably know all of this, and probably the Mayor Pro Tem, but I wanted to just kind of go briefly through the history as I could find in recorded documentation. So the first that I could find was 2002, where we actually included this in a comprehensive plan. Under community values, what should Aztec do to achieve the desired vision for the community? And one of the initiatives that was supported was construction of a loop road for trucks around Aztec to relieve congestion on Main. It was put in section C as additional goals and recommendations, infrastructure, road, provide a truck bypass. The next record I could find, and this may be incomplete, but this is what I could find. Community Trends in 2007 was a survey of the community. And in that survey in Appendix B, number 4, what's the most important issues that will be facing the city of Aztec? I could find in that there were 9 people who wanted the bypass. The next is the 2020 Farmington Metropolitan Planning Organization plan. They have listed in their plan, their 2045 Metropolitan Transportation Plan, the East Aztec Arterial, and there's the description of the arterial. And then finally, in 2021, we updated our comprehensive plan, and the goals for that are in Chapter 7, Transportation. Goal number 2 is to complete Aztec Arterial and plan for future development. 7.21, prioritize and seek gap funding and working with NMDOT on transferring ownership of Main Avenue to the city of Aztec. So, as you guys know, but maybe for the audience, the idea was we'd build the arterial, we'd swap it for downtown, which is 550 coming through downtown. And then 550 would divert around, and the main reason being to get the truck traffic off of downtown.
What would we do? Would we have to rename Main? Would we renumber it, or is it still gonna be like?
Yeah, it would be Main, but no longer 550.
Okay.
But I want to tell you, that's a long ways away for a couple reasons. One, we've learned in the past couple years, Ed can confirm this, that they will not swap a 4-lane for a 2-lane road. So we'd have to build 2 more lanes. Plus, we have to finish Phase 2B, which we've normally called Phase 3, which is the rest of the way down all the way to 550 on the north end. And that's that. As we have a grant out right now with the COG is looking for dollars to get that engineering started if we go ahead with the project here. So I don't know. Another 20 years? I really don't know. 10?
I think it would be sooner than that. I think we move forward with this project and it starts getting built, then we get this DOT will get right back on involved as they were through 2010 through 2015. They were very excited about this in those years. And I think they'll jump back in and you'll see funding come forth. And 173 is a state highway, right? And so I think they'll come in and they'll take it and they'll upgrade their highway, and then signals on both ends. Now, it's not gonna happen tomorrow, cause I am on the MPO, and it's that piece of it is not on the list. However, 2 meetings ago, I did mention to, Paul Brasher, that it looked like we were moving forward with this project, and they needed to dust off all the old plans. At one time, I saw plans for all of it. All the decel lane, the lighting on both ends, and 173. There was talk, concerns when we first saw the plans for 173 about the water line coming out of the water plant down to the highway. And at that time, it was like, okay, well, the city at their cost will have to upgrade that line and get it. And there was some talk then about that, but of course, that was still one of those things that just, okay, well, that's 10 years out, you know, whatever.
Correct me if I'm wrong, you put that on the ICIP, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so we know about that, and we are planning for that in anticipation.
Right.
So we're trying to
It's
get
on
out
the
ahead of it.
ICIP list, you know, I'm working with Ed to get that.
So
Sure that's-
I think the state will get right back on board.
Well, I agree 100%. To me, it's like a field of dreams. Build it and they'll get in bed with us. And there's some help out there. And I think with our local legislation, we can get some funding to help us do it. I mean, when we started this 2 years ago, we were what, $6,000 or $7,000 down. We were only allocated like 12 million.
Yeah.
And
that was
then
a few years ago.
Then
Yeah.
we got on our hands and knees and we begged. And I think with a little persuasion with the governor and a little work, there's money there.
Yeah.
And I think that once they see that we're serious and we're willing to do the investment, to go to it, I think that we can secure the funding
Yeah.
down the road. Now, my other question would be about that, even if we do that and we start moving money around, if we secure more funding for that, can we use that extra funding to offset, you know, if we pull investments or we do that kind of stuff, can we put that money back in from that? Is that legal, or does it depend on how it's written?
That's what it
Well-
depends on is the grant.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's one of the concerns that I have,
Yeah.
you know, but, I mean, I for one was against this project many years ago, but we're come this far, you know, we've begged, and we're gonna have to figure out a way to make this happen.
Yeah. Well, I think we've got some pretty good news for you. So we'll
Good.
We'll keep going here. So y'all are aware of this was yesterday. We did the summary of the bid opening, and we had Wilson on Zoom call, but we didn't necessarily have any questions for them. We had 2 bids. Lowest bid came in at the 19,994,224 or 225 to round up. And that's F&F Construction, and they're the lowest bidder, and that total is with the GRT. Wilson has vetted them. They are licensed, and in Wilson's professional opinion, they are capable of handling the project. So they have everything, bonds, everything that they need to get this thing.
Have they got a
done.
background for roads that they've
Yes.
built?
F&F is they're pretty big and
Okay, they're pretty
They're
big.
the large
I've never
background.
heard of them, that's why I was asking.
Albuquerque?
Phoenix, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, I've never heard of them, so.
They did the 550 in Bernalillo. Big portion of that project.
Okay,
yeah, this is definitely the stuff they do.
okay.
Now, back to that 19,994,224, that is the cost of construction. So everything we had before, that budget is blown, because in Wilson's assessment, they had contingency, they had cost of oversight, they had cost of oversight of the mitigation of the dump that's out there, and they had all those things built in. This cost is just the construction, the 19,994,225. So we have additional things that we're gonna talk about, and I've given you some precursor to that.
I thought you said you had good news.
Huh?
I thought you said you had good news.
We do have good news.
Okay.
We did, yeah.
Give him time.
I'm sorry, this
We're building
slide went crazy on me here, Ed, so it's hard to read. I apologize. This is the tip. This is the funding sources. Okay, number one is the local contribution. That's $816,869. And the kind of not good news about that is we have to match that. And we have more that we have to match. The bottom total there, the $436,800. Then the feds are giving us the $4 million, the $2 million, and the $1 million. And that is already has a PO issued. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That is ready to go. The state funding, the $7.8 million is from the legislative grants, and the other $800,000 there with the 682 and the 180 are from state road fund. So this is all confirmed by DOT that this money is available. You can see at the bottom there, the local match for us will be $1,253,669 out of this TIP money. So our estimated total costs, and I say estimated, but they're pretty accurate, here is that we have the cost of construction from F&F. We have the estimated oversight, that would be construction management and the landfill monitoring as they're mitigating that landfill out there. That landfill is why this bid came in higher. Sorry. That's why this bid came in higher than the engineer's estimate, because that is an unknown, and all of the contractors are worried about asbestos. There may be none, there may be zero, there may be $1 million worth, nobody knows. So they bid high. So unfortunately that hurt us. The oversight and the landfill monitoring mentioned, then we put in a contingency of 5% at the recommendation of Wilson. We thought that there was going to need to be a deceleration lane added, but it is already out there. Can you explain it? You went and looked.
Of course, yeah. I spoke with Wilson about we're gonna need a decel lane out there, and Wilson's been working on it since the beginning. He said, I thought we'd done that. Let me check. So we looked into it, and then we looked at it on like the satellite view, and then after last night's commission meeting, I went and took a quick look at it as well. It's out there. It's not striped.
Right.
It's not signed. It's not delineated. It's kind of deceiving. It looks like a really wide shoulder, but it's there. It's paved and it's ready to go. It's actually, I didn't actually measure it, but it's wider than your typical lane, so it's plenty wide for a decel/turning lane. And it just needs to be striped. It just needs to be signed. It just needs to be identified as such. It's about, I think, like 500 or 600 feet. Again, I didn't measure it, but it was 500 or 600 feet of decel lane, which is what you would need, and it's out there.
Hey, that's great news.
I thought there was an issue though with, that property that's right there on the corner with that guy, that we were gonna have to spend some money and buy some of his property for that.
No, I know Wink Metter owns
Yeah.
owned that. I don't know if he still
I
does.
think he sold it.
Oh,
Did he
did
sell
he?
it?
He sold it.
Yeah, I remember one time they had asked for an access off the new road, and I don't know if that had ever gotten worked out or if that was something later.
I met with him, and then he came into the commission during my tenure as city manager, and he said, I want to remind you about this. And it really wasn't going anywhere, and I don't know if that influenced his decision to sell or not, but he sold. As far as I know, we have no obligation.
Well, that's good.
We had no written obligation anyway to Wink. I'm sure we have no obligation to current ownership.
Other than he was a great friend of the city.
Well, he did so much stuff for the parks and the kids
Yeah.
and the fantasy of lights and all of that, man.
Right, well, that pump station is sitting out there.
Yeah.
He gave us the land for that.
So,
And that's about where the start of that decel lane starts, is right at
It's
the
right at the
pump
access
station,
road.
and then it goes all the way from the pump station, however many hundreds of feet that is, to phase 1B, or to our first phase.
And to add to that, if I remember right, I think there's already conduits all through that intersection for the lighting.
Mhm.
I think that was put in when that intersection was built.
Yeah, there's the guardrail. There's everything there you would need for a decel lane, except striping and some signage, which is not much.
did the city of Aztec put that in?
No, I think it was when they built the intersection. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. In fact, I remember one of the Wilson engineers had gotten with me and wanted to talk about the signals foundations, the concrete foundations for the signals. And I had to go look to see if they put them in and they would clear the power lines that were out there.
Okay. Well, they may have forgotten, or maybe a new engineer. I don't know if Robert's been on the project the whole time. So, anyway, sorry for the way the slide is scrambled, but the estimated total cost is, and that's fairly accurate, is $22,178,834. So, our state and federal funding, grant money, is $16,363,200, and our local match, as I pointed out back one slide, is the $1,253,669. So we're adding in the local match to the difference between the grant funding and the estimated cost and the difference between the federal and state funding. So what we have to cover on the cost is $5,815,634. So the total cost of the project, back to the 22,178, we will have to, if we receive no further funding, we just go with this, we'll have to write a PO for that amount. So the issue is not that we have enough money for the gap funding. Our concern is about writing that PO and having the money in reserve to be able to write that PO, which will be checked by probably DFA.
Okay, now you've confused me. So you're saying your concern is what? That you're gonna take money out of a savings account and put it into a checking account?
A savings account, basically. Well, yeah, we're gonna put it into.
From a savings
we're gonna
account
put it
to
in
a
the
checking
budget. We're
account?
gonna put it in the budget, expense
Yeah.
account, right?
Okay.
And then we'll be reimbursed on it. Right.
Oh, you mean the whole total?
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I was wondering, how you were gonna work that out, if you're gonna take, chunks of it, like 5 million at a time, and then as pay stubs came in, you paid them, turned it into the state for reimbursement, got that money back.
Right.
We have to have the whole thing in our budget before we can do the PO.
So so we're taking reserve money that has been in reserve for some time, some of it anyway, for some time. And we're switching it into the budget to utilize, but we'll be reimbursed for most of it.
Yes,
But
22.
at that time that it's in the budget being used, it will no longer be reserve money, right? We can't use that if we have an emergency or we need to make a change in the budget.
Because it's already
accounted
spoken for.
Yes, exactly.
It's allocated.
Are we gonna dip below our reserve requirements?
Well, we're gonna get to that in the next slide, so. So reimbursement amount, $16,363,200. We'll probably, Jarek thinks the first couple months, we'll be writing checks for $2 million. And then eventually it'll calm down and be, $1 million a month. And then we're gonna be waiting for that reimbursement from NNDOT, which we're told from Wilson that is sometimes slower than most people would like for it to be.
Mhm.
So we're gonna have to have enough, we'll have to have the whole 22 million, but we're gonna be writing checks and waiting for reimbursement. So there'll be months that we're doing a little of this, right?
Okay.
A little juggling for those that can't see what my hand's in the air. Okay, here's what we have. And we're reluctant to discuss this as open as it is, but we have to talk about it. We've got in Citizens Bank, which you guys have seen, that you renewed these regularly, 2.5 million in a CD. Four Corners Bank, we have 1 million. In the local government investment pool, which was a lot of money was put in there over the years, we've got 12,876,867 for a total 16,376,867, which is basically money that we can bring into the budget pretty quickly, right, Jenny? I think the CDs come due next month.
One's in August and I think one's in September.
Okay, so we can get that money, our hands on that money pretty quickly. The next is your balance reserve, so that's your question, Colby. We have our budget for this year, and this is where this is an estimate, because we don't have the final budget. We have the preliminary budget. We don't know how much cash is gonna roll back in from 24 to 25, so that will change both of those numbers right there, the 6 million and the 990.
Are they fairly close though?
We think they're close, but we think actually the number should come out higher, but I don't wanna promise that. Because we never spend the whole budget.
Right.
But I don't wanna promise that. So, minus the 12th that we're required to have in the general fund, we've got that 6,173,363. Then in the 310 fund, which is capital projects fund, which can be used for capital projects, again, this is an estimate. We have 2 projects in there. One is for the Sun State redo of our network, our hardware network, and there's the roof for this building. What we're projecting to be left over after those 2 projects would be the 990,000. So that's another 7.1. I know John Wheeler and maybe even Mayor Pro Tem won't like this, but we could borrow from our utility fund. Currently, we have $8 million in there, and we'd just be loaning the money to ourselves. We're gonna recoup 16 million. We would pay that fund back for sure. Where we probably, and I'm spitballing, and I don't want to say for sure, probably where we would take the 5 million that will be the coverage would be out of the local government investment pool, and we'll pay everything else back in some manner. So that we would reduce that 12 million to 7 million once everything is paid back in the 2-year period.
Mhm.
So the total amount of investment and reserve fund, our estimate is that bottom number right there.
So we're okay.
Right? I mean,
I mean, you guys just gotta stop and think that in the end, we're actually gonna spend another, 6 million,
roughly.
right, of our money on this project, which we can still work with people to try to cover that. I mean, this is like a 2-year project, right? What's the timeline, 2?
It's a 2-year project.
2 years. So there's a lot of time for us to do some talking.
We're already
Right.
working on that, and we'll get to
And,
that.
and so all we're doing is just, we're taking, like you said, money out of the savings account, put it over here to just cover.
Put it to work, and then we'll put it
Right.
back in the savings.
Right.
The only issue is if we had as Jarek said earlier, if a meteorite hit and we all survived, we'd have to figure out where we're gonna get the money.
Where we're gonna get the
to
money
repair
from.
the damage for the
Right.
meteorite.
Well, and I gotta be honest with you, coming into this meeting, I really thought that we might have to go out and get a loan, right?
That's a possibility.
And we don't need it. I mean, heck, we can borrow 8 million from ourselves if we wanted to.
Still there, Nan?
Still here.
Okay. All right.
I'm already pros and cons page.
Okay. All right. So,
And if a meteorite hit, then we take a loan.
yeah.
Yeah.
And we have pros and cons about it, but we want to make sure you understand. We understand this is your decision. Whatever you decide, we'll do, one way or the other. So pros and cons. We think the pros are, as it's been advertised, we're gonna divert the traffic off of Main Street, which would be better pedestrian safety, protect building structures. We don't know to what degree. I mean, it's been promoted over the years as a savior, but I don't know, I don't know. We'll retain credibility with the state. In fact, I think we'll gain credibility with the state, because we will pull this project off, and we believe that some of these agencies just don't think that we can do this. And that's why they've been reluctant over the last 6-8 years to work with us, frankly, right? And I think they still have reluctance, so. We feel we retain credibility and trust with the Aztec citizens because we did something we have set as a goal 22 years ago and has been talked about, kicked around, thrown in you guys' faces probably more than once, and you know, good, bad, and indifferent comments about it, so. It's, you know, the potential is it will enhance the future economic development of the Main Street, South Main. And there's maybe a little bit of room for economic development on the arterial itself. You know, it's mostly BLM and state land. There's very little private land that will touch the arterial. But Andrew's already working to try to figure out maybe a way to get some of that land purchased, at least the state land. We might be able to get that purchased at a cheap price for development. And the last one, it would complete another portion of the Aztec trails plan, so that it will have an asphalt trail that runs along with it, which will connect over there by Tiger, and that'll be another whatever mile and a half, 2 of that trail. What are the cons? The project's incomplete. To make it go, we stripped the lighting out of it. The phase 2B is incomplete, although we do have a grant to start searching for the money for design. So we have a little bit, and as you've said, there are plans out there, Ken, that have already been, I don't know if the phase 2B was drawn or not, but.
Now, what do you call phase 2B?
Well, we've called it 3, and we called it says
From
2B.
73 down.
173 back to the highway.
Now,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Down to 550.
See, and I don't think that's on us. I think the state will take that.
okay.
Once we get this project going, right, we let the bid and put them on notice, say, we're building this.
Right.
I can guarantee you, they're gonna get right back to start pulling out old plans.
Plus, we're taking a grant, $30,000 grant that the COG is working with, and we're actively seeking money. So it should be their responsibility, but we're also saying, we're serious about this. We're willing to put some money towards this as
Right.
well, right? And yes, that's what the hope would be, is they'll do the intersection, they'll do the lights, they'll do the decel lane, they'll do the lights on 550 North. And that's part of maybe the reason why they don't want to do it, too. Right. If they don't, I don't know. And then we know the incomplete part, we need 2 more lanes if we want to do the road swap for South Main. So we'll have to make it a 4-lane. It'll have to have all the accoutrements, the lighting, and probably everything. It adds to the maintenance for the public works crew for winter and general upkeep. There's concern that it's an unlit road. The 550 intersections north and south, potentially, you know, we could have some accidents there. We'll need additional police presence out there. The land is currently undeveloped, and you know, we'll tie up this reserve money, and the potential is it possibly could decrease our available funds for projects or other things. So that's what we got. I guess just quickly, while you're thinking about discussion points, I'll let you know what we've done so far. We've talked to Rod Montoya and let him know. We've spoken with Senator Bill Schurer, and Bill is on the case. And I told him, or I told Jermaine that I'd mentioned that he has taken a special interest in this, and we should be thankful. I spoke with Tom Taylor this morning. He wasn't as receptive, but
He's okay.
yeah. We followed up with Steve Lanier, Bill Hall, Steve Neville, Rod Montoya, Bill Schurer. All of them have at least received an email that we're looking for the additional funding. Ruben followed up with Peter Koppel of the Farmington Municipal, MPO, thank you. And we spoke to our lobbyist, Scott Scanlon. Andrew initiated that yesterday, and he talked to Secretary Cerna of the NNDOT. So Secretary Cerna is aware and actually responded to our questions. We have planned that once we know what we're gonna do, we've gotta contact NMDOT, the District 5 engineer, the person that's now taking handling this project with us. And then we also have confirmed the cost match currently that we have put in. So this reduces that 1.2 by 200,000, and that's the 193 we paid Wilson, or 194 actually we paid Wilson so far. So brings it down 200,000. We talked about phasing the project, where we would do the waste part separate from the landfill, and then go back out to bid, because then that would give the potential contractors a better understanding of what the cost of the project is, because as I mentioned, the estimate for the landfill was the big gap difference between the engineering. But the issue with that is the federal funding, the $8 million in federal funding. If we go back out to bid, potentially could be clawed back. In fact, the engineers warned us that that's a pretty good possibility that we'll lose that federal funding. So we've talked about loans. We applied to the New Mexico Match Fund, that's in 2024 this year, supposedly has 65 million in it. The application is submitted, and they got back with us and wanted more information. We're refilling out the application. So everybody keeps telling me this money is, they're trying to give it away. So we might get more money there. And then, of course, we can go back to the 2025 legislative session. We'll deal with Steve Neville and Representative Hall and see if we can get more money out of them. So that's what we've done. What we're working on. So we'll stand for questions or discussion, whatever you want.
Well, the citizens I've talked to are very positive about it and hoping that we go forward with it. I still think that in the 2-year period, with a little, we'll have a couple women in here, with a little getting on our knees and begging, we can get some help. I know that somebody told me that even, what's her name? Fernandez.
Teresa Lady.
She's kind of watching this project.
Oh, is she? That's good.
So, there's some federal money there. I think that we have ways to at least try and fulfill it. It kind of scares me if you got $200 in your checking account and you tie all $200 up. That kind of scares me, but I think at the end result, looking at that contingency for the dump, I don't want them to think, I wouldn't want FNF to think that that's okay. You're gonna get one for just mitigating that dump. If there's nothing there, they're not gonna get 1 point, and we gotta look at it that way too.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
We'll have to watch them.
and we have to stay on top of it.
So is this a pay app, like, they use 100 tons of road base, that's checked, and then we pay against 100 tons of road base?
Yeah, so their
Is that the way
bid.
this is set up?
Yeah, so the bid items are laid out for the quantities for the engineer's estimate. If they bid, let's say, for 100 tons, and they go out there and they do 90 tons, they bill us for 90 tons.
That's it?
They bill us for 90
Okay.
tons. The pay app will show 90-ton billing, and
So that takes care, doesn't take care of it, because we don't know what's there. I
Sure.
know there was core drills done. I know the engineers went out there and,
Many years ago
yeah,
too.
drilled around to see if they could find things like asbestos or
There
old
was a lot
cars
of
or
unknowns.
whatever.
during the pre-bid, when we went out there and walked it, and they expressed some of their concerns about, we just don't know what's down there. They said, what if there's asbestos? And there could be, there could not be, but I think, as Jeff pointed out, that was a big driver of the increase in cost, was they were very high on those costs. But as you pointed out, they'll
If
bill
it's
us,
not
they'll bill us
there,
for what
then
they
we
do.
don't pay.
They'll bill us for what they do. So
And that's one thing I would question.
Where's the verification process? Is that the engineers? Is that on us?
Yeah, that's in the 1.1 million, I'm sorry, Jared.
Oh, no.
jump in. On the 1.1 million where we saw oversight for construction management and then the mitigation.
Okay.
There will be a specific person that will be hired to watch that portion of the project.
At their
so
expense, not ours.
No,
We're
we're
paying.
At our-
We'll pay for it.
so and part of it is, we're required to have, oversight on that. we want to, but we're also required to. The waste excavation plan that this is all based off of was prepared by Sauter Miller and Associates several years ago. And so, as part of that 1.1 million construction oversight that we'll have, we would be paying Wilson to, and they would sub out to Sauter Miller and Associates, since they're the one that prepared the plan, to be on site and monitor it and take tests and take samples and make sure that everything's where it needs to be. You know, there's going to be eyes on it, and it'll be the eyes of the people that, you know, they prepared the plan. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
What's the age of that landfill?
Were
Were
you jumping that?
Well, first there was God, and then there was Mike.
I know there's probably a few beer bottles buried in it.
Actually, for some clarification, the road isn't actually going over the landfill. When the landfill closed, people still went out there and did illegal dumping. Along
They're
the
still
hill,
doing- they're
along
still
the ridges and the
doing it.
slopes. And so, when they did the survey, they found the stuff along the ridge and the slopes. They just don't know how deep it is. They did do core sampling, and they found it rather shallow in a lot of places, but I think the deepest they ever found something was a meter, but it was like almost in a royal type ravine thing. And so I'm guessing that the contractors did a worst case scenario of 1 meter across the entire area.
Right.
Because you just don't know what the depth is. But if they're scraping and blading and they're not finding anything, they screen it, there's nothing there, there's nothing to haul to the landfill.
That's just less cost. Yeah,
That's the
and
problem.
in
That's
in
why
the
you don't
original
do that.
estimate, yes, in the original estimate, Wilson was pretty conservative with his estimate too of how much waste there's going to be, just because, you know, we don't want to assume less and then get more, and so he was pretty conservative with his estimate, and it appears as though the contractor was pretty conservative on their estimate too. I think that's going to double up. I can't say for sure how the waste excavation plan is going to go, but it's been overestimated, you know. So there is a possibility that it could come in less, and that would obviously be a potential
Well, that was the
savings
number
there.
that jumped out when you looked at the bid.
Right. Sure.
That
It's
extra
a
$1 million
big number.
is the one that went, bam.
Anytime a line item is a little bit ambiguous in terms of its definition, and if there's an unknown in there, every contractor's just gonna basically up that
Up that,
number
yeah.
and be conservative. That's all they can do. They have to cover their bets.
Are we being conservative on our contingency on the 5%? You know,
Yeah.
contingency is a word that scares me.
Yeah.
You know,
If I may, Chair.
Of course.
So we had it a little higher, but our engineer said, you want to, I know we're in a public meeting, want to be careful.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we don't want to advertise,
okay.
Yeah.
you know.
I
Am I
just-
making sense? I'm trying to.
No, I know what you're trying to do, and I appreciate
Yeah, I
that.
don't know,
I just-
FNF may be watching this.
Contingency scares me, you know, especially on a bid, because you really don't know. You know, take the reservoir as a prime example. You know, where contingencies are gonna really escalate the price of that reservoir for what the bid was, so. And I'm hoping that we're okay.
And that's why we're gonna continue to seek the funding,
Yeah.
the gap funding, and looking for more ways to get it done, because we just don't know, right? Who knows what they're gonna hit out there?
Right, and that's true. I mean, I can remember that dump back in the day growing up here. I mean, but I'm thinking that it was covered quite a bit, you know. So, but I don't know. Like you said, or Kobe said, they're still dumping out there. So, you know, we see it every day.
Yeah. It's a fairly big project, and it's not been walked 100% every inch
Yeah.
looked at. I mean, it's been surveyed. We know there's some arc out there, but it's not right on the project. I think there's gonna be one section where they have to put a fence around the archaeological site, but it's not in our right of way, but it's feet away, so they don't want anybody driving out of the, you know, but who knows? You just don't know.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'll just throw out my deal here is I say we move forward. I think we've got the money to cover it, and we move forward, and then you and I can work with staff, and I mean, I'm going to Clovis here in a month. I'll talk to some people while I'm there. your municipal league meeting, and do what I can that way. But that's where I'm at. I say we move forward. We've gone too far to back out now.
Is that staff's recommendation?
We
Don't be afraid.
showed our pros and cons.
I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Well, I just let them speak for themselves. Jenny?
Well, I think we should go ahead with it. We do have the money and everybody seems excited about it, so I think if we want to do it, this is the time to do it.
You think would be okay financially?
I do.
Okay, and that's what I wanted to hear, more than anything, you know. It, like I said, it scares me when you have so much money in your checkbook and all of a sudden you overspend it. You know, I don't wanna shut our other projects down or future goals that we have in our ICIP and that kind of
This
stuff.
will be the largest infrastructure or any kind of project we have ever done in the city of Aztec, ever.
Well, yeah, you don't have to explain that to me, cause I started on this thing back in the nineties is when this first came to Aztec for the proposal to do this. I mean, I'm all on board. If you and finance tell me that financially we're okay, and we're not afraid as elected officials to beat doors down and ask for money. I mean, like I said, we can even go federal with Teresa out there. Senator Heinrich is all about this area also. I mean, we have the opportunity to get on our knees and beg, you know. The governor's gonna use that road. Of course, I know she's about done, but there's still some state funding that I'm hearing too, that if we go to work on.
Yeah.
You know, Clovis, I don't think in Clovis you're gonna have a whole lot of people that care about Aztec, New Mexico.
Well, that's where you start talking.
Well, and I understand that, but.
Do you mind if the rest speak?
No,
Just for
please.
everybody's chair?
Sure. Yeah. No. I think there's again pros and cons. It's there's some risk involved with a project this size, but I think the biggest thing for me is I think we want to kind of show that we can do it in the sense that again one of the risks that we had is that we don't want to jeopardize this funding because having that funding pulled back. Grant agencies in the future might be like, well, why should we give you money? We already gave you $8 million and you didn't do anything with it. That's a risk, and I don't want to put future projects in jeopardy because we're not utilizing what we have. And if it's doable, I think it'll be a lot of work. It'll be a big project, but it's something that I think would be a very, very good kind of gold star for Aztec. And again, I think it would have the potential to help us for future projects too. Again, we're trying with the reservoir. We've had a very good rapport with the grant agencies. They're very happy with how it's proceeding, and we're trying to do that because when we come back to these people 5 years, 10 years, 15 years later and saying, hey, we have this other cool project, I want them to look back on it and say, oh yeah, well they did pretty good with the reservoir. They did pretty good with the arterial. Why not? Let's give them some more money, and that's how we get stuff done.
Just to add one thing to that,
Yes, sir.
what he's saying, I just thought about that. We're even trying to get another 160 acres on the east side of the motocross out there from BLM. We're moving that direction. That's really gonna enhance outdoor recreation in that area also. So, I mean, that's a positive in the pros part of it that I just thought of, so.
Ruben, I know you have concerns,
Oh,
but I don't know
no.
what to state for you.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, I've already suggested, from day one, I wish we had a water line on this project to make this area developable. Yes, we can, after the project, we can come back afterwards, which is why I included it in our ICIP. My biggest concern is probably more than anything else is lack of lighting on that road, especially in the wintertime. Things like that. When you're driving at night, you're coming back for a tournament, coming off of the sports complex or whatnot, and you're heading back out. There are no lights out there. That's going to be a constant concern. But in terms of the finance, yes, we're looking at about $5 to $6 million, something we have to front up. That's funds we have to pull out of our pocket to pay for. That's not grant funding. Well, one of our goals we're going to be doing in the next couple of years is we're going to try to get that gap funded. So at the end of the day, when that project's over, that hopefully, we don't have that 5 million. We only have, who knows, maybe even nothing. That's the goal, is to not have a dime out of our coffers that we have to pay for this project when the project's over. Right now, we front the money, but in 2 years, at the end of the day, we would end with nothing, and that's our goal. We're gonna continue to fight for that extra gap money that we're calling. So, I just wanna emphasize, that bit.
Can I ask for Andrew? Do you have a thought from economic development?
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I gotta share with you, we're kind of looking at the land around there, at least to start developing or be allowed to promote for development. That's, I found out was DOT, but, I definitely think we should go forward, because you're looking at least 5 years if you wanna kick this up again. Look at all the certifications, look how many times it's been kicked up. I think this is it. And I think, like you guys are, that it's there, we can make it happen. My only comment is the scrutiny of the construction. This is really my experience in the past. This is where the work begins. All the funding in place, I know we've really gone through a lot, but this is it. And the amount of documentation and planning for that dump site, if there is asbestos or if there is something that's far above what the contractor estimated, to me, should be eligible for a change order. We should go back to, either a negotiation or something to that effect. One, you got a plan in place. Two, we already have 1.1 million for oversight on it. And if, something comes out where all that's not enough and you have a change order on that one thing, I think that would be something that would be at least a concern that you guys would really want to question. So that oversight is really gonna be key to keeping that contingency cost down. And then really that's it. When we talked about the reservoir, and you're right, I know you've had the changeovers, but that's kind of a different animal. You're just, you don't know what you're gonna hit when you start excavating, but you're basically just building a road. You're not trying to retain water, it's pretty straightforward. After the dump, the enterprise gas has been moved. Other than that, it's just something that they discovered that's an archaeological find, which is more likely would be than,
I didn't bury anybody out there, so it's okay.
Not there.
And then my take on it is, it's 50-50. It could be the greatest thing that ever happened to us. We accomplished this, we gained more trust of our community, it reduces that traffic downtown blossoms, all those things we prayed for happen. It could be the other, right? But whichever way you push it, you tell me, and we'll get to work, one way or the other.
I do have a couple of questions. As I was listening, the CD at Citizens, I got that. Four Corners Community Bank, I got that. But the local government investment pool, $12+ million. And then there was some discussion about reserves that's in utilities.
That's the R&R reserve.
Right. So is any of that included in the $12.8 million
No,
of local government investment money?
no, that's in the pooled cash. And I
didn't have anything to read before, well, I was driving too, so
actually have,
if you have a page on that,
You
maybe.
might wanna look up,
yeah, I just brought my own, I just have one, but if you look on here, you'll see the pooled cash, and that's where that money is, and then you'll see the investments down here,
Okay.
so,
But the reserves that are in joint utilities are not commingled, is that correct?
they're in the pooled cash, they are commingled, but not in the local government. They're in that top number, like the 19 million
Okay,
pooled cash.
operating account,
Right, they're in there.
okay.
Well, you probably know the process, Ken, as much as anybody. It's a loan. Is that the way it works?
Oh, yeah, if worst came to worst and we had to borrow from ourselves, it would be a loan, and we'd work with the attorney, and the general fund would take a loan from the joint utility fund at X% interest over so many years. And the commission would approve it and we'd move the money.
0.001% interest?
Has that been utilized in the past?
It's been talked about many times, but I can't ever remember that we actually used it. Now, at one point in time, the joint utilities paid for that building where the,
MVD is.
no, the bar.
Oh, 550?
550, but it ended up being 550 Brewing.
The hub.
Yeah, the hub. And then the auditors came back and said, no, that has got to be a loan. And so the process went through just what I explained to make it right on paper.
Yeah.
And then eventually, I believe it got paid back.
We did the same thing when we enhanced the utility office and put MVD there and
Oh,
moved it.
okay.
Actually, we moved it from the hub into that building and we took an internal loan to ourselves out.
To do
And
that.
DFA was all, that's what they wanted to see. You know, they were adamant about it.
Yeah, we work diligently. We're gonna make some commitments, yay or nay here, but if it's yay, we'll work diligently to make sure that we follow processes correctly. And then I will make a commitment. I know we don't wanna put a cap on what we're got planned for this year, cause we plan to do a lot, but I think I've gotta really monitor that, and there may be some things that we should maybe look at and say, should we go ahead with this project when we've got some reserves that, you know what I'm saying? I
Well,
just think
that's why you're the manager.
That's right,
Right.
that's right, but I'm assuring you that's the way I would approach it.
Yeah. I think that's the wise way to approach it, yeah.
I'd like to hear from Nan on her concerns, risk, liability, et cetera.
Nan, have you still got us on mute?
No, well, I think I've got me on mute.
Oh, okay, just kidding. Okay, did you?
Liability concerns what exactly?
Just are we, in moving forward, are we adding, or some unforeseen liabilities and risk that we haven't discussed?
I mean, I think the pros and cons page sums it up pretty thoroughly. There is some exposure on the non-lit part of it. This is a federal highway though. You're telling me this is a state highway?
No, it connects to a state highway.
Oh, it connects to a state highway.
Right.
Okay.
Is that correct, Ed?
Well, 550 is a US federal highway.
That's a federal.
Okay,
And then
thank you.
Mexico 173 is a
Yeah,
state highway.
Okay, so, did
Connects
you,
both the federal and the state together.
yeah, did you get that, Nan?
Yeah, it's a federal.
Well, it connects a federal to a state.
It
It's
connects a federal to a state,
it's
but the
another-
actual, once it's constructed, who owns it?
We do.
We do.
Okay.
But our goal is to try to divert the traffic around the city and swap it out with Maine to get traffic off of Maine.
Right. So I think you summed it up pretty well in your cons. Your exposures are, maintenance. You're gonna have to snow plow it, sand it. There's gonna be accidents related to weather. You knew all that going in, I assume. The non-lit could pose a problem. That's always an issue. I don't know if the bid includes like barriers between the northbound and the southbound lane, but
It does not.
We don't think so.
yeah, those are the exposures I see. From a financial perspective, those are financial perspective sort of liabilities, but do we borrow it from utilities or do we borrow it from LGIP? That's a policy call on your part, and I don't, that's a decision on your part. But that's really all I see are the real consequences of just owning another arterial and maintenance. All that will have to be built into future budgets.
Does that answer your question, sir?
And if we had to put a number on what those future liabilities for maintenance, et cetera, any idea?
Maintenance?
Well, you got, as Nan had mentioned already, with, during the winter season, I mean, the roads could be frozen, black ice, those are all, and plus the road turns too. So we have to look at all of those issues when you're driving at night. As far as putting a number to
If
liability.
Do you
it's-
own snowplows? Will you have
Yeah.
to?
Yes, we do.
What about personnel, equipment?
Yes, it's gonna require additional, maybe equipment. We have personnel with enough CDLs to do it, but maybe one or two extra snow plows. Well, when I say that, I mean the plows that we would actually stick on our trucks, not an actual big truck kind of a thing.
Mag chloride?
Yeah, additional chemical, mag chloride, and salt, and of course sand and whatnot, the normal treatments. But those are the maintenance components. But one of the main focuses that you might be talking about is, okay, what's the liability in case of accidents? You know, that's a city road, okay, and what liability is it to the city when there's an accident, and how much liability is it of the cities if, I'm not saying there would be if there's lack of, or claims of lack of maintenance, or something happens.
Lack of lighting.
Or lack of lighting, exactly, thank you.
But there's a lot of highways in the state of New Mexico that aren't lit. You know, you put delineator poles out there, state of Colorado recognized those as lighting.
Yeah.
You know, at night, so, I mean, and we would have to do that, but.
That's a good point, cause you're looking at 2 years.
Yeah.
Before that thing even gets open, and we'll need to have some solution for lighting and traffic safety during those 2 years, right? Cause you can't just open it up.
I would
without-
almost bet you look at the state, this is federally backed money, right? Which means that when the contractor leaves that site, I'll bet them delineator posts, all that is there.
Should be.
Because if you leave here and go
Yeah.
to Albuquerque on 550, they put all that stuff in, and that, because it's a federal project.
Yeah, if it's built to ASHTO or the federal specs, it probably will have those markers that.
I would assume that it would,
Well,
because
it
that's
had-
almost a
It had to
standard.
meet NMDOT 2019 standards.
Right,
Yes.
There you go.
Roger that.
but that's considered lighting, you know,
Yeah.
and on some rural roads, and like, this is almost a rural road. So, you know, just to kind of give you guys some, I did get it, or we do have an email from, Austin, and Austin feels like the way we do, to move forward. That's his comments is, hopefully the state can bail us out, but I would not be opposed to dipping into reserves for a portion if that's what it takes to connect the two ends of the road. So, I mean, he's on board with it. Now, if you want a final from us, I know we can't make a magic decision in a workshop by statute, but I would be one to agree with staff to move forward. Is everybody in agreement with that? That's not, the only way that we can actually okay this is put it on there to, award the bid,
Correct.
you know, on the next meeting, but I for one think that for what I've heard today, and actually with what Jenny said, you know, financially, it's something that can be done.
Mayor, if I may.
Please.
Next meeting's a little tight.
Well,
We got
or
budget, and
whenever.
we need to really vet all of this and make sure
That's-
we're doing things
that's fine.
correctly, and, you know, we don't wanna put something in front of you and later say.
But I think what you're being told though, Jeff, is you have a positive vibe from the commission.
Yes, sir.
More so if, whenever you bring it to us to award that,
Yes, sir.
if we decide to award it. You know, do you guys all agree with that?
I do, I still have some concerns, and, you know, I do think that, you know, we should move forward. I just worry about what's the 20-year cost? Are we adding an additional $1 million, you know, in cost each year for the bypass, you know? And it's a $20 million project, and in 20 years, it's 40, you know, million with the, you know, maintenance, upkeep. You know, I do worry about adding additional liability.
Well, and two, the longer we drag our feet,
That's true too.
the more it's gonna cost us. And we have already faced that over and over again. And that's what I hear more from citizens when talking about this project is we just keep dragging stuff and we don't, you know, pull the trigger then it costs you more money. And, you know, I for one, and I had asked Jeff for all the years that we've had Wilson on this, what have we paid him? You know, I was surprised that we hadn't paid him as much as I suspected.
Yeah, 193.
Yeah.
There's billing out there still to be had.
Yeah,
But
And
that's
that
the
goes
round
towards the match too, right?
Yes.
Wilson, so.
you know, but I was surprised. I figured that, you know, they keep dragging their feet. But I'm saying DOT the same thing. Is, you know, if we don't pull the trigger, it's going to cost us more money the longer we wait.
Well, I kinda look at this a lot, for those that have been here, and Jeff, you were there, is when Farmington was talking about Pinion Hills. Remember that? That was pie in the sky. You guys are gonna do what? And today you look at that, I mean, for the last, 15, 20 years now that's been open, you're like, man, this is an awesome road. These guys, somebody had vision, and they put the plan in place, and forever there was nothing out there, right?
Now look at the growth
And
on
now
the north
look at
side.
it, yeah, and that's where I'm at. That's how I'm excited about this project. Is it could be Aztec's Pinion Hills Boulevard.
Could be. We gotta overcome the federal lands and the state lands and the lack of private land and the infrastructure, but that's how cities grow, right?
Yes.
That's what you see typically is they keep building
Out
arterials
and around.
around and then they
Yep.
fill in and they're no longer causeways or fast ways to get through town, and so you gotta build another one.
Right.
Excuse me.
Well, I'm in agreement. And if everybody else is in agreement, I think we.
Put it on the agenda.
But yeah, you guys do your due diligence, bring it back to us, and you know, let's make it happen. I think it's a positive move for the city of Aztec.
Okay.
In my mind, you know, just part of the history of it. This was actually a dream back in the '90s of Art Cattell, and I've said that before. And Art Cattell was the mayor of Bloomfield when I was the mayor before. And he said, you guys need to build something around Main Street. And I told him, I said, that'll never happen in my lifetime. I want to see it done before the end of my lifetime. So,
Yes, sir. Okay.
anything else? You guys have any questions for us? I know that, I think you have all of us on board.
Okay.
You know, I appreciate the information, and I really appreciate the way that the presentation, because I think you answered a lot of questions even before we got in there, and I really appreciate that myself, so.
Okay.
Does anybody have anything else?
No, I just wanna say thank you to staff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cause I know you guys pulled your hair out for years, right?
Well, Ed did.
And then,
Nothing like.
That was just dealing with the right of way.
Well, with that, you guys have any other comments? You good to go? Then I will close this workshop, and we will move forward.
Thank you, Nan.